Okay, welcome all to this panel on equipping Africa's next gen of AI entrepreneur. I'm Dr. Nicolas Poussielgue. I'm the CEO of the Dakar Institute of Technology, higher education institution dedicated to AI in Senegal. And I have the pleasure to have on board today very interesting participants. We have Pius Illah, who is the head of innovation and partnership for the Machine Intelligence Institute of Africa, based in South Africa. We are lucky also to have Dr. Moustapha Cisse, who is the founder of the African Master of Machine Intelligence, which is run by EMS in Rwanda and Ghana, and who is also the head of Google AI Center in Ghana. We also had a chance to have with us Mrs. Nomso Kana, who is commissioner for the fourth industrial revolution in South Africa, and who is governor of NEFA, Nuclear Energy Foundation Agency, also in South Africa. So welcome all of you. Thanks for accepting to participate to this panel. I will just tell a few words about AI in Africa, telling first of all that you know that AI will really revolutionize the world, and we know that AI will contribute up to $15 trillion to the worldwide economy in 2020. And we really need Africa to be part of this big picture. And we know also that Africa is home to the youngest and fastest growing population on Earth, and that currently 60% of the Africans are under 25. And we got plenty of young talent in Africa who are really ready to engage in the digital revolution. If I want to name a few already initiatives in Africa on AI, of course, we have the Google AI Center in Ghana, IBM also a research center in Kenya and South Africa. We have the African Master of Machine Intelligence in Rwanda and Ghana, and also the Machine Intelligence Institute of Africa, with some African conference on machine learning and deep learning called Deep Learning in Dakar. There is some institution we work for AI for development, and we got also a platform called Zindi, which is trying to solving the African problem through competition. So I will start with the first question in the panel, and perhaps each of the panelists, please tell more about you before replying to the first question. Because I just introduced you very quickly, so if you want to say more, don't hesitate. So the first question is how we will leverage Africa's wealth of young tech-savvy entrepreneurs to really increase the voice of the global AI research community. And for this first question, I will give the floor to Dr. Moustapha Cisse, who is known, I think, all over Africa, and at least all over Africa, for his work on for the development of artificial intelligence. So, Moustapha, if you can say some word about this topic. Thanks. I don't get your sound, Moustapha.
Thank you, Nicolas, for the invitation and also for the question. Yeah, so it's a great question, which a recurring one actually, which keeps coming, and I think the answer to this is chiefly in education. Or to rephrase the question, how do we build capacity? How do we make sure that we endow the young Africans with the technical skills, and in this case, the AI skills that will allow them to unlock the potentials, whether it's in entrepreneurship or in other sectors. So this is a huge challenge because, as you mentioned initially, this is the youngest continent by far. I think in countries like Senegal, where you are, the median age is about 19. So this is a huge task, but a fascinating and an interesting one in that regard. So we have, at least as far as I'm concerned, invested in education for some time now. And I am seeing many other institutions like your own institution, the Dakar Institute of Technology, or many others creating graduating programs in machine learning and artificial intelligence. I believe only that way, together with other approaches and initiatives such as building community-driven learning groups, conferences like the Deep Learning in Dakar or Data Science Africa, only that way we will manage to equip the young people with the skills they need to tackle the challenges they face. And by tackling those challenges that they face here on the continent, build companies that will generate wealth for them and for their communities. Because if we can't rely on other companies and ventures coming into Africa, we cannot rely on those companies and ventures coming to Africa to solve our own problems. And the challenges, the problems and those challenges increasingly require a level of technical abilities that is not, for which we don't have the educational infrastructure. So that there are increasingly large number of graduated programs in schools, universities, etc. But still, it's a drop in the sea if you compare it to what the needs really are. So I would say that, in my opinion, the most important building to leverage Africa's wealth of young, savvy entrepreneurs to increase its voice in the global AI research community is to make sure that we invest massively in AI education and bring world-class AI education here in Africa. We've tried to do that with the African Masters of Machine Intelligence, which you've mentioned before, where every year we recruit a small group of bright young Africans with backgrounds in mathematics or physics or CS or electrical engineering, and train them to acquire those capabilities. And hopefully we'll see more and more of these things in the future. But really, education, that's the key in my opinion.
Okay, thanks. Thanks very much, Moustapha. I think Pius, also you are in the Machine Institute of Africa. You are also delivering a lot of educational program, and also helping the community. Perhaps you have some word to say to us about how to leverage Africa wealth of young tech-savvy entrepreneur in AI.
Yeah, so thank you so much for, can you hear me? Yes, so thank you so much for the very nice introduction, and thanks, Moustapha, for your comments. I think Moustapha pretty much summarized everything. When you think about the capacity gap on the continent, it's a massive, massive gap. And that is because, you know, in the last, say, maybe 10 years since, you know, the whole hype became a crazy hype, you've had a couple of actors in the ecosystem, you know, go into the ecosystem and sort of, you know, just do whatever they could to make sure something is happening, you know. And some of the earliest interventions, you know, from, you know, corporations like Google and IBM, and from institutions of higher learning like Stellenbosch University and UCT in South Africa, and from individuals and even a few government institutions sort of created that awareness that is now leading to loud conversation happening about the quality diffusion of AI knowledge. But we have a situation right now where after the hype, what's next? And that is what makes it necessary for the conversation around education and capacity building, and capacity, be it at the individual level, be it at the organizational level, and organizations being government organizations and non-for-profit, and be it at the institutional level, whereby universities also need to, or higher learnings also need to understand that whatever value is being created through teaching and research can be leveraged for impact and transformation. But I think I couldn't agree more with Moustapha that education should be the slogan after the hype. Yeah.
Thanks very much. Nomso, perhaps you have some word to say. Question, if you want to intervene.
Certainly, Nicolas, my two colleagues have mentioned the most critical element in really to propel artificial intelligence in the continent. And if I put my cap as a commissioner in the presidency, and really the number of ways on how we have ensured that, the hype just does not remain in the air, there is action on the ground. So part of the 4IR Commission in the presidency, we actually recommended that South Africa alone will have a cross-cutting AI institute to ensure that we find a way of bridging the education part of ensuring that people understand AI from the different sectors that they come from. And I think that's one of the most important things, because we need to understand that in this revolution that we are in, AI is it's a cross-cutting theme, and it needs to be singled out as a cross-cutting theme given its prevalence and also the potential to become a general purpose technology. And Africa needs to take charge in this, because we're still in the beginning and we still have an opportune time to really pave our own way in really ensuring that AI plays a role in our society. Thanks.
Okay, and did you see that South African government is really hearing your what you are saying? That does it do enough to develop AI, or does it just a drop in the sea, as was telling Moustapha before? Do you think that the governments are really taking the lead on these subjects and really want to do something strong?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, what Moustapha has mentioned, it's quite very important. It is a drop in the sea regarding the capacity on the ground. So what drives AI conversation in policy making and also decision making in the South African government? It's because of the, of the organization, non-governmental organizations that are ensuring that, there is awareness, there is education, and the driving elements that is ensuring that police makers they take in the importance of including AI in development, economic development, is actually coming now from the private sector. So as a player also in the ecosystem in the private sector, we make sure that our government, sometimes they are BOTs, and we make sure that they actually understand that the future is really around AI, and the economies of this world will be driven by AI. Thanks.
Okay, very good, very good. Thanks very much, Nomso. So I think we can go now to the second question about PPPs. Saying how private tech companies are partnering with public research institutes in Africa to build AI-enabled societies. Moustapha, can you say a word about that? Do you have example now on private tech companies partnering with public research institute? Perhaps you with Google, your Google Center is already partnering, I guess. But perhaps you have other example. Perhaps Moustapha, you can start to reply to this question.
Yeah, thank you for this question. I think, as in many areas, and AI is no exception to this. The most productive and the most transformative initiatives happen through partnerships, and in this case, we're talking about private and public partnerships around AI, around projects where AI can be an enabler or can help accelerate some initiatives. So we definitely have a few partnerships with various institutions. We're not at a stage where we can talk about this publicly, but overall, we have a lot of partnerships and or discussions with people in the public sector, especially universities in the different countries where we have people coming from and stuff like that. For example, there are people in the team who used to be faculties at Makerere University in Uganda. So when they joined our research team, they also maintained part of their time working with Makerere University in Uganda, and this has led to developing a project around crop disease detection to allow or to enable the farmers, to allow them to detect certain types of crop disease early on, so that they can take action before it is too late. So this is an example of a partnership that exists between a public institution, in this case a university, and a private institution, which is our research center, for the benefit of actors in the ecosystem, in this case the farmers. And I think we would gain a lot from increasing this type, the number of such partnerships, because that's where the most transformative initiatives happen, when institutions, especially institutions approaching the problems from different angles, institutions evolving in different areas, like some institutions in health, others in tech. When they jointly tackle some problems, they can bring different perspectives, and this very often leads to some of the most important breakthrough that we've observed in AI in the past few years. So, so to your question, I believe this is private and public partnerships are important. They are actually critical to the success of AI research and development projects on the continent, and we need to promote them.
Okay, very good. Thanks very much. Nomso, you want to tell a word about this private-public partnership on the continent on AI?
Certainly. So on a policy-making front, so South Africa had an opportunity to be in the AU chairship this year. And also some of the ideas that we have imposed to our president to bring forth to the helm of AU was to actually look within, the policies that enable private and public partnership. We do understand when it comes to artificial intelligence, perhaps maybe on the infrastructure side and also on the education, we need to accelerate the development of that. And I think sitting in the commission also, we got an opportunity to look at close to 166 policies across the continent that will enable, the formation of AI in the different countries. So I think it's quite important, and to the point where now universities, institutes of higher learning play a critical role in ensuring that this comes to pass. But also, big OTTs also play a critical role when it comes to perhaps the infrastructure. And I think it's quite important also that we pick up partnerships from a grassroots level so that we understand that AI will have to improve the lives of Africans from a grassroots level. And also just speaking from in nuclear energy side of things, we had an opportunity also to really understand how AI plays a role in the US specifically, with the partnership that we have with Allied Nuclear. And we also had to understand the fact that it's important for us as we start to utilize alternative energies for the development of Africa, that we use AI, and within AI and the AI models that need to be trained, we need to have partnerships within those. Thanks.
Okay, thanks very much. Thanks very much. Pius, you want to add some words?
Yeah, I think
okay. Yes,
to
please.
add to what my colleague said, I've been also, she mentioned, Nomso mentioned a very important point, which is infrastructure and capacity, or skills and know-how. And South Africa, within the SADC region, is part of an alliance of people who are, of governments and leaders who are trying to build a cyber infrastructure, across the SADC region. They call it the Cyber Infrastructure Framework or something like that. That is in partnership with the Center for, CSIR, and in Cape Town, for instance, the Center for High Performance Computing presents researchers, like Moustapha, the opportunity to have access to safe, and efficient compute infrastructure. But when you begin to take the conversation up north beyond South Africa, then you begin to have a lot of challenges and you begin to have a lot of constraints. Google and other service providers, they have, giving a lot of people access to, their cloud compute infrastructure. And that also opens a very unique opportunities for universities to, latch onto those, platforms and make things happen. But, from the perspective of that partnership, we have to also view it, as a triangular partnership between, research institutions, between corporations like Google and Microsoft and Amazon Web Services, and between, government universities and those corporations. So the time is now for us to, practicalize these things, for us to leave these things. We also want to be in a situation where we don't have problems around capacity, how to leverage, these opportunities. When you go to some research institutions in Africa, they don't even know how to create a cloud account. But so this is some of the things that we need to think about. How do we bring these things closest to our people in the shortest possible period of time? Yeah.
Sure. Thanks very much, Pius. I think thanks all for answering all this question about private-public partnerships. We can start the next question now, which is exploring the role of progressive policy and regulation in Africa's AI revolution. I think we know all that each African country is not ready for the AI revolution as of now. I think there's a lot of, I guess I didn't make a specific study on it, but there's a lot of countries who are not really ready on the GDPR side, for example, on the open data, all these things. And I think I would like to hear your point of perspective about what we can do to make the country more AI ready, okay, to help to smooth the process of the development of AI. Perhaps we can start with you, Pius, on this subject, if you have some word to say, please.
Yeah. So I think, in my opinion, I know that everywhere around the world, especially in the global north, there has been a tremendous amount of work. And by global north, I mean the developed West and all that. There has been tremendous amount of work that has gone down, from, the space exploration mission, whereby, automated vehicles were launched into space and all of that, the spacecrafts, there is a tremendous amount of intellectual knowledge, a splurge almost, that has been generated by humanity over a long period of time that we can sort of, in a very clever and in a very intentional way, understand and leverage this best practice. as a way to instrumenting, our own ecosystem. So it's just, it's just like what entrepreneurs would do, where you don't have all the money, you don't have all the investment, but you can pretty much piggyback things together in a way that it works to you, and you call it your minimum viable product. So for us in Africa, on one hand, there is the high level talk at policy level, and government takes time to, start making things happen. But behind the scenes, there are a lot of things that we can do as individuals, to bring a critical mass of people together, be it, teaching young people in rural areas how to build models, be it even encouraging researchers to annotate their data sets correctly at a campaign level. Just label your data sets correctly. Someone down there might use it for compute later in the process. All of those things, all the groundwork, heavy lifting work can be done by just piggybacking and leveraging what is happening in the global north in a way that it can actually move the needle for us. And should government decide to fully support and bankroll things, then they already have a very willing and a very well-mobilized critical mass of people to support, because government cannot do it all most times. And even though they said, we want to do this and all that, the reality on ground is that we as individuals have a big role to play in making sure that this whole thing comes together. And that is my opinion, that we should leverage global best practices, be it spending time, sensitizing young people in previously disadvantaged communities about this opportunity. And that sensitization will sort of be a trigger, be a catalyst that makes it possible for them to accelerate the learnings and the knowledge and the behavior in this era based on whatever support they're able to get from government. So yeah, that's my opinion. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks very much, Pius. Nomso, would you like to say something about the role of policy and regulation?
Yeah, to expand to what Pius has mentioned already. I mean, I mentioned that being in the commission, we actually discovered about close policies that need to be optimized, amended in order to enable private and public partnership. And also part of those are the regulatory frameworks. But, there has been progress, I must say, with the AU, especially the unit that develops digital economy. So they have been a number of policies that I've seen for big data and also for artificial intelligence ethics, but all these things are still a draft phase. And I believe they need, people that are in this room to actually drive them from an AU side. But, the issue at hand is that standard, we need to really optimize our policies right now in order for us to move forward. And that's the only way. And we need to adapt to the global behaviors and patterns and trends, and also shape them in a way that will ensure that Africa is progressive. But I believe right now there is sort of a right mindset, if I can put it like that, at the AU in a decision level. But they still need to be pushed, because technology changes and technology matures very fast, and also we need to ensure that from a lower level to a higher level, and it occurs parallel. Thanks, Nicolas.
Sure. Thank you very much, Pius. Moustapha, is it a problem for you, this problem of policy and regulation? I guess you talk with African government, and I guess it's not easy for developing your MIIA center in Ghana. What is the problem you face on this problem of regulation? How do you speak? What is the response of the government on all these questions?
So actually, we this may be surprising to you, but we didn't face any problems in that regard. And I think it is important, while the nation states are figuring out what's the right regulatory what's the best regulatory framework for each of them, or collectively at the level of the AU, that the companies operating in the sector, so all the companies working on research and development of artificial intelligence across the continent, have their own charter. And I would even go further and say that this charter should not be less restrictive than the the laws that already exist, because we need to operate as avant-garde. And as far as Google is concerned, at a global level, we have a set of principles called the AI principles, and these principles actually govern everything we do in this area of artificial intelligence. So they tell us what we can do and what we can't do, the type of applications and research we can pursue, or that would be desirable to pursue, and the type of application and research that we cannot pursue. And it is important to put these safeguards in order to ensure responsible innovation, because at the end of the day, citizens, or all of us working in these companies, we are citizens of these nation states as well. We care about the law, and we operate within the boundary of this law. But above all that, we also want the best for our societies. So I think it's important at the level of the company to put these rules, and not just wait for the nation states to create the regulatory framework, even though this is extremely important.
Thanks for raising this very important point, Moustapha. We are running short of time, because at least less than 5 minutes now, so I can all the people who are listening to us, you can start asking question in the chat close to this discussion, and we will go quickly to the last question of this panel, which is creating a coordinated Pan-African AI development strategy. And I will leave the floor to Nomso about this question. Please, Nomso, say a word very quickly, because we are running really short on time. Thanks very much.
Awesome. So I'll be very quick. I mean, Moustapha penned a very great article, I think in 2018, maybe around October, but it was published on the nature.com website. And you know, just for it was an opening to really ensure that their thoughts regarding AI strategy and a roadmap for Africa. And it's simple things. We need, you know, collaboration with, you know, the experts, all the Africans that are in, you know, they are in the global big companies, to ensure that the roadmap and the strategy for Africa is implemented. And those goals really need to look into AI education, as we've mentioned, research and development, and also industrialization, because we need to see all those AI models playing out their role in society. And to add into that, honestly, right now we know the continent, the median age is 18, 19, but the continent is largely female. So we need to get a lot of women and other minorities into AI education, so that, you know, there is a collaborated and a coherent learning regarding AI development in the continent. Thanks, Nicolas.
Okay, thank you very much, Nomso. Perhaps Pius, you can say your last word, but very quickly, only 1 minute, and Moustapha also 1 minute. And I have to also already thank you, Nomso, for your participation. Moustapha, you can say your word, because you were the one who published in Nature in 2018 this text that all of us have seen, of course.
Yes, I wrote that document to summarize my thoughts about what should be happening in Africa in the next few years within the area of AI. And I'm actually seeing many of those things happening already. And Nomso has mentioned initiatives also happening in South Africa and on the continent. But I really believe that it's important to have this constant communication between experts in the private sector and decision makers in the public sector, in order to have the type of advance and the type of breakthrough that we want and that will be for the benefit of the populations of the continent. I think there are more to say about this. The people who are interested can read the article. It's available online.
Sure. Thanks very much, Moustapha. Thanks very much for participating. We are very honored to having you on this panel, and we'll give the last word to Pius. If you can say last word on this, on the Pan-African strategy, only less than 1 minute, please. I'm very sorry.
Yeah, I think to summarize, young people in Africa are hungry, and they're pretty much on the same page in terms of wanting to change the narrative. So that is also a very good place to start from, to listen to exactly what young people are saying. Young people want to play, young people want to tinker, young people want to innovate. And that is the best and the cheapest way to learn first quality skills and capacity. Yeah.
Okay, thanks very much, Pius. Thanks very much, all of you, for this participation. Now it's the time of question and answer. So we are here to reply to your question and answer. And thanks very much for watching all this awesome panel. And thanks again to all the panelists.
Awesome.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Nicolas. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Moustapha.
No.